Combining tarot and rune practices. In one of your videos, you mentioned that we should not combine working with tarot and runes, in other words, any two egregores, in principle. The question is, how can we make a smooth, gradual, and gentle transition from one practice to the other to avoid backlash? That is a good question, and here is my answer. The issue here is not a conflict between egregores, as it might seem at first glance. We must never forget that we are dealing with magical tools. Magical tools exist at a level slightly higher than any egregore, because they are formed by a magical system. And every magical system, at different times, has been inspired by different gods. This is important to remember. Accordingly, both runes and tarot are magical systems inspired by different systems of different gods. Therefore, we must understand that a conflict between them may arise. This is because tarot is a southern system, rooted in Sumerian-Akkadian and Egyptian traditions. Runes, on the other hand, belong to a northern system, originating from a different region. However, it cannot be said that they are in direct conflict. The key point is that these magical tools are based on different principles of worldview. And at times, these do not align in many key aspects. The function of runes as a magical tool differs from that of tarot, primarily in its orientation and purpose. Runes develop a person's consciousness based on their current assemblage point position, helping to stabilize it. In other words, they expand consciousness along the horizontal axis. If we look at the three circles scheme that we often work with, the three magical circles scheme, runic practice helps to move along the horizontal axis, the axis of time. It enables a person not only to achieve success, but also to act appropriately within the framework of their life, in accordance with their word, the destiny they have been given. The tarot system is based on the Sephiroth tree. Its purpose is to shift a person's assemblage point, not along the horizontal axis, but along the vertical one, that is, from darkness to light, from evil to good, and so on. In fact, it works in the exact opposite way. However, this system is so intricate that it can only be fully understood through deep exploration, not only of the arcana themselves, but also of the worldview that underlines them. That is the correct approach. Accordingly, the purpose of tarot is somewhat different. This system does not assume that a person will be successful in the present. Instead, it assumes that they will be successful at the level they can reach. That is, they must reach their highest potential and then develop from that peak. The whole tarot system is based on an agreement between a person and a god, between a person and the system. Therefore, both the major and minor arcana of tarot serve not only to help a person understand this agreement, but also to solidify it. So these systems have different motivations. If one practices both systems simultaneously, their consciousness begins to conflict with itself. On the one hand, runes stretch it out horizontally. On the other hand, tarot pulls it vertically. The consciousness does not have time to stabilize at the position established by the runes, while the arcana immediately start drawing it to a level where it neither knows nor understands anything yet. This can lead to a powerful internal conflict. To avoid such a conflict, it is best to separate these practices over time. Furthermore, runes are a very specific system. It is pagan. If we consider that the Sumerian-Akkadian and Egyptian pantheons were later smoothly and coherently integrated into the egregore of Judaism, which in turn influenced Christianity, then having a Christian seal or initiation does not pose an obstacle to studying tarot. For runes, however, it can be an obstacle, since the pagan system is seen as an enemy by Judaism, Christianity, and all other religions based on the Judaic operating system. And as a matter of fact, they do not hide this fact. So, on the one hand, if you have a deep connection to monotheistic religions, such as Christianity or Judaism, you should consider that they may resist your attempt to study a pagan system like runes. On the other hand, Pagan gods strongly dislike a person who tries to sit on two chairs at once. This means that, without fulfilling their obligations within one system and paying their debts, they will immediately reach for another magical tool, invoking and using the powers of pagan gods. From the perspective of the Norse tradition, this is inappropriate. It is simply wrong because that tradition is based on concepts of honor, and to violate those concepts is to obstruct the system itself, to put it mildly. Therefore, runes may not align with a Christian worldview or deep involvement in Christian, Jewish, or Muslim traditions, which are all essentially the same. If you do not have such deep involvement, if no egregorial or religious system lays greater claims on you than you are aware of, then it is possible to combine these practices is possible at later stages of study. For example, you can study the Elder Futhark, undergo initiation, then study the greater deities, the lesser deities, and Ragnarok. The classical study of the Norse tradition typically follows this program. At the stage of studying the lesser deities, it is possible to begin the study of tarot, as at this stage there is no critical development, only a refinement of certain nuances in one's consciousness. At this point, the consciousness is stabilized, and there is no harm in beginning to work with the tarot. So you can simply begin by studying the major arcana, followed by the minor arcana. If you start with the tarot and plan to move on to the runes, the sequence may be as follows. You study the major arcana of tarot, the elemental forces, and the minor arcana. While you are working with the minor arcana, you can begin to study the runes, as the minor arcana also serve to refine one's agreement. Especially in the stages that begin with the pages, the burden on consciousness can be avoided. At this stage, if time is limited and you do not want to waste it, this approach is viable. However, if time allows and you fully understand the seriousness of the process, it is best to complete the study of one tradition, bring it to a proper conclusion, repay for the guidance, and then proceed to study another tradition. But again, this assumes that you have no unresolved debts in either system. This is very important because when we study a magical system, our own wired, our karma, must be free of unnecessary burdens.